What's up, everybody out there in YouTube land? Wrath2501 here. Okay, guys, I don't usually do these kinds of videos, but this looked really interesting, and this was actually recommended to me by Walker. All right, but this just seemed really cool. Making Left 4 Dead as realistic as possible. This video is by called Rat Lobber. All right, so he seems to be a pretty decent channel, 178k subs. So let's see what he's going to do to make Left 4 Dead 2 more realistic. This isn't like a joke video or like with memes or something like that. He's actually going to be improving the game. All right, so let's get started here and go.
We're now watching a Rat Lobber video.
Okay.
Enjoy the video experience.
That's actually kind of creepy.
I've always had a soft spot for
this intro's kind of creepy as hell.
One of the first video games I ever played, in fact, was the original Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six from all the way back in 1998.
Oh my god.
I mostly remember just really hating the fact that you actually had to plan out your own missions and being upset that there was no weapon view model, but for all of its faults, playing it gave me a lifelong desire to kick doors in and mow down whoever happened to be on the side.
lifelong
It's been
desire.
about 20 years since the tactical shooter genre came onto the scene, but it's really only recently the graphics have gotten good enough to deliver a truly lifelike experience. Thanks to games like Ready
I don't
or
want
Not,
a lifelike
the days
experience.
of
If I
breaching
wanted
a
a
low-poly
lifelike,
house
I'd
to shoot at
go
low-poly
real life.
bad guys are over, and now you and your squad can pretend to be good guys in a disturbingly realistic environment. But I'm kind of nuts. Okay?
Disturbing.
I'm a little bit cuckoo. When I first saw gameplay of Ready or Not,
What's that Coco
my first
Melon
reaction
shit right
was
there?
excitement at the fact there was finally a tactical shooter game with realistic graphics. My first
Ready
reaction
or
was,
Not.
imagine if Left 4 Dead looked like this. See, I love the fast-paced action of Left 4 Dead 2 more than anything, but I also really appreciate the tactical parts of Ready or Not. So, my perfect game would ideally be a beautiful combination of the two. And, as it just so happens, Left 4 Dead 2 is one of the most moddable games in existence, and
It's one of the most
pretty good amount of
modded
those
games
mods
in
are made by
existence.
people
Dude, look at
just
that
as
shit.
insane as I am, and exist solely to make the game more like a realistic tactical shooter. So today, mostly just to scratch this really weird itch that I have, I'm going to do my best to turn a 15-year-old game into a modern one using a bunch of different mods and make Left 4 Dead 2 as realistic as humanly possible. If Valve won't remaster Left 4 Dead 2, then I guess I will.
Yeah. If Valve will not do it, then the fans will.
Now, I could have just jumped right in and instantly started adding a bunch of crazy-ass mods until my copy of Left 4 Dead looked like SWAT 4, but I figured the best place to start would be to just take the default Left 4 Dead experience and make it look as good as I possibly can.
Yeah.
That way, we have a really nice blank canvas that we can dump a bunch of mods onto when the time comes. I played through the default vanilla version of Left 4 Dead for a little bit and tried to really think about what needed to be changed first. There are plenty of things that look kind of dated, like a few of the weapon animations and view models, certain objects and props, and a pretty low-res look overall when it came to smaller textures, like on the faces of the common infected. Before I started messing with those tedious tiny details, though, I wanted to make a change that was physically big, but didn't mess with the game that much. Skyboxes. These are like little boxes that somehow make up the sky or something.
Yeah, I don't know how
I'm
that
not
works.
a game developer.
He's not a
Left 4
game
Dead has
developer
a bunch
yet.
of
He's
different
attempting to
skyboxes,
develop a
and
game.
to be honest with you, none of them look particularly amazing. They definitely serve their purpose, and in some cases can set the tone for
That
how
one's
certain
pretty good.
level
I like that
feels,
one.
But in a lot of
It
cases,
fits.
they're also
It
just these
fits.
big gray blobs that are kind of blown out and lack any detail. So I got rid of them and installed a mod called Fancy Skies, which swaps out the default Left 4 Dead skyboxes with these new, highly detailed, lifelike skies. These look pretty nice, and I think you could easily make the case that they're more realistic than the original one.
Okay.
I will admit that the new sky on Dark Carnival is just a little bit fantastical and reminds me of something my mom would post on Pinterest, but as far as the daytime ones go, they're all a lot more realistic, have visible clouds, and look pretty picturesque. To round out this small graphical overhaul, I went ahead and installed Reshade, a fancy little program that can add things like bloom and fake ray tracing to basically any 3D game. After borrowing a realism preset from someone here on YouTube, I loaded back on Left 4 Dead and honestly liked what I saw. It seemed to up the saturation quite a bit, added a bit of bloom, fake depth of field and ambient occlusion, and in general just made the game feel like it had a lot more depth. Unfortunately, one of the best looking effects, the ambient occlusion, seemed to glitch out super hard on some maps, and I could only get it consistently working on a few very specific campaigns. Trying to use it on No Mercy, for example, added these weird ghost artifacts all over the screen and made the game look pretty bad.
That is
in areas where it actually worked, though, it looked really nice and made the game feel a lot more modern. I didn't even know this was possible, but I also found this filter called SSR, which added screen space reflections to the game, which really looked insane on certain maps. It's hard to overstate just how much more organic the game feels with this enabled. Unfortunately, it didn't work on every map and also made my PC
that's
loud
a
as
problem.
hell, so I was going to have to use it very, very sparingly.
PC.
While I was here playing around with shaders, I decided that I really wanted to take advantage of the added depth.
It's because
that
you're
feature
using multiple
introduced by
programs to make it
implementing a
work.
Dynamic lighting mod. What this does is add dynamic light. and
Oh,
glow to
yeah,
certain
that one
elements of the
really
game
helps.
That frankly probably should have been there to begin with.
It actually allows
Now,
you
when
to use
walk
your.
around a bright object like a Molotov or a pipe bomb,
You
light
get to use the
actually emits
Molotov
from
like
it
a
and will
flashlight.
Follow the object around. The same goes for enemies like tanks and chargers that have been lit on fire.
Cool.
It was a pretty small change, but one that I think makes everything come together much more nicely. Speaking of small changes, I rounded out the graphical overhaul by downloading cinematic lighting effects, which tastefully sprinkles in a nice helping of lens flare all around the game.
I don't like that.
As everyone knows, there's nothing more realistic than lens flare. With just a few small mods, I now had a much more vibrant copy of Left 4 Dead.
Mods
Everything
plus
felt much more
reshade.
alive thanks to reshade, and these beautiful endless skyboxes made the maps feel more like real places and less like arenas made just for killing zombies. Now, you might look at the footage on screen and think, wow, Ratlobber really ruined Left 4 Dead's art style. And to that I say,
Damn.
Don't worry,
Shut
it's
up.
about to get a lot worse.
Yeah, exactly. So that I'd say shut up. Oh yeah, there's mods for the weapons and stuff. I've
Left 4
used
Dead's
some of
weapons
those.
are pretty cool. They're high quality, well made, and honestly probably some of the best looking weapon models that Valve has ever created. I don't really think any of the guns are necessarily unrealistic, besides maybe the Desert Eagle that's big as hell for no reason, but I do think their animations are a little bit underwhelming. Maybe it's because they're so stiff,
Itch.
or maybe it's
Oh,
just
why
because
the hell's
I've
my
been looking at
leg
them for
itch?
like 15 years now, but regardless of the reason, I
Damn.
knew that the only way to make them even more realistic was to overhaul them entirely. So I went over to the workshop and downloaded this weapon reanimation pack called Back to Left 4 Dead 2. A project led by one single developer that aims to tastefully reanimate every single weapon in the game and bring it up to more modern standards. And
Pretty
honestly, they did a really good job. The weapons are held much more realistically in the player's hands, the reload animations now have a sense of urgency to them, and despite technically being the exact same models as the default ones, they really did feel fresh. I particularly liked the M16's new animations, the combat rifle's new animations, and felt in general like the guns were being held at a much more believable angle. The Desert Eagle also looks like a
AK-47.
normal-sized gun now and not some freakishly large toy, so that's also a plus.
Hold it
While I
like
was in the
this.
middle of using my newfangled firearms, I also decided it'd be a good time to download a more realistic flashlight. Left 4 Dead's default flashlight isn't necessarily unrealistic, but I grabbed this one from the workshop that aims to make it look more like a modern LED flashlight, and that looked pretty cool. I also used a console command to hide my crosshair, which I probably should have done a long time ago. I played through a pretty big chunk of the game like this, and honestly it already felt like I was playing a remastered version of Left 4 Dead. The game in this state was a pretty good mix of the realism I was going for, but also retained Left 4 Dead's unique identity. But as good as these reanimated weapons are,
You know,
the mod
somebody's
isn't
gonna, if they're
actually
gonna
finished yet, and
remaster,
therefore
they're gonna do
doesn't
something
apply
to
to every
screw
weapon
it
in the
up.
game, which
Especially
means that
Valve.
it's time to kick it up a notch and
Well,
actually properly.
With Valve, it's
overhaul
lucky if you can get them
all
off their
of the
ass
guns.
to do anything for a
While
game.
browsing the workshop, I realized to myself that the best way to make the game realistic would be to find a weapon or a mod that lets you aim down the sights. But considering how Left 4 Dead's mod tools work, I figured that probably just wasn't possible. Which is why I was insanely surprised to find this huge weapon pack that not only replaces every weapon in the game with a more realistic model, but also enables you to aim down your sights. Sort of. Because of Left 4 Dead's modding limitations, the workaround for enabling ADS that this modder found was by just replacing the shooting and walking animations with an ADS animation. So every time you shoot, or if you slow down enough while you're moving, the gun will snap directly in front of your eyeballs and give the illusion that you're actually looking down at sights. Honestly, this felt way better than I expected it to, and definitely felt like a pretty significant realistic change. Unfortunately, it did result in a lot of weird animations and the gun moving around all crazy like when you get into heavy combat, but I'm honestly just more impressed by its engineering. I would have loved to make this my final weapon pack and call it quits here, but the general jankiness of the add-ons made me feel like I should probably find a set of weapons that are a bit more well-rounded and a little less experimental. So I elected instead to install a mixture of weapons from Modern Warfare, Ready or Not, and Escape from Tarkov, which I think are some of the most realistic shooters on the market. Despite being a little less interesting than the ones that let you aim down your sights, I felt like they were still a very solid choice. Every single weapon in the game has been replaced with a more realistic one, and this one even extends to melee weapons, unique level items, and throwable items, so it should ideally result in a much more cohesive experience.
Meh.
I'm definitely still going to
I think
use
Back
the
to
ADS
Left 4
weapons
Dead
here
2
and
is
there
better.
because they're honestly just cool as hell, but they're not going to be my main set of weapons or anything. There's definitely some more tactical looking ones I found that I'll be using here and there, but these are the most well-rounded ones. Also, I downloaded this cool tactical version of Bill so I could actually get some nice glove models.
Nice.
I'll download realistic versions of the rest of the cast later on, but I just wanted something real quick and dirty so I could get some cool army guy gloves.
Mechanics.
Now that I had a copy of Left 4 Dead with
Mechanics.
enhanced graphics and realistic weapons, it was time to actually fundamentally change how the game worked. Left 4 Dead's mechanics aren't super unrealistic, and there's even a realism mode that comes with the game by default, but all that really does is make the game harder and give the enemies more health, so I had to do a bit of my own tinkering to get exactly what I want. The first mod I installed was the Survivor leg script. This not only adds back in leg self-awareness from Left 4 Dead 1, but also adds support for custom models. Any player model I download from here on out will have real physical legs, which I think helps a lot with grounding the player in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, like literally, because my feet, they
Your
is on the
feet
ground.
is there. They be
In
there.
keeping with that trend, I also decided to add the first-person animations mod. This does exactly what you think it does. Anytime the game would usually go into third person, like when you're healing or getting pinned by an infected, the game will stay in first person. I'll admit that it glitches out pretty often, and sometimes your hand will clip
Oh,
through
shit.
objects and stuff.
I was like,
but I do think
"Ah!"
at the very least that's better than being put
That'd be
in third
terrifying.
person when you're trying to play an immersive game. The next add-on was one that I find pretty important for making any game feel tactical, and that's the tactical movement speed mod. This does exactly what you think it does, and just makes the player move a lot slower, and in general makes getting around feel a lot more weighty. I know rapid action and quick movement are pretty much cornerstones of Left 4 Dead's gameplay, but it's honestly a really fun and unique experience to play it at a slower pace
Nah, I
and
don't
take your
like
time
that
clearing
one.
buildings like a true soldier. Or just like an airsoft player or something. I used a mod
Airsoft
called the
player.
Ragdoll Collision mod to make it so that when infected die, they not only stay ragdolled forever, but are also a lot heavier and can collide with their own bodies. This made the game a lot more visceral and also made my PC louder than it ever has been before, which I took as a
Jeez.
sign that I was on the right track. I know it seems like a super trivial addition, but
your PC
being able
is
to
like
move
telling
zombies
you,
around
dude,
after you
please
kill them makes
stop.
the game feel a lot more raw.
I'm a
I spent
potato.
a longer time than I would like to admit shooting zombies and watching their bodies fly all over the place.
Yeah.
In a weird way, it made every encounter with a zombie feel much more important. I installed this enhanced impact particle mod, which I honestly don't really notice when I'm playing, but side by side I do think it looks a lot better. I also downloaded an add-on
But it
that
just
ports
makes more
over the
dust.
V-tilt from Black Mesa and adds a little bit of lean when you strafe left or right. A pretty small change, but I think it worked pretty well for adding some fluidity to the movement. There aren't a lot of HD remakes of the common infected, but there are mods like this one that aim to make them just a little bit more diverse. This isn't necessarily making the game look
Define.
better, but I do think it makes it more realistic by adding variety to the zombie population.
Oh, okay.
I also downloaded some 4K textures for the special infected, but honestly there isn't much difference between these ones and the default ones. I downloaded these
I
cool
think it's a little bit
military
better.
player models for each of the 8 survivors, which I know doesn't necessarily have much to do with the mechanics of the game, but I have nowhere else to mention this fact, so I'm going to mention it now.
Well,
I would have loved to
if
spend
you're
more
going for the
time adding a bunch of
tactical
tactical
experience,
mechanics to the
that's what
game,
you want to
but
do.
The truth is, there just aren't that many because actually
Like the
changing
Left 4 Dead
Dead's
movie
core
we
gameplay
made a while
is
back.
pretty much the
Awesome.
one thing modders can't do. So, I think it's best to call it here in terms of actual gameplay mechanics and
Oh,
move
shit.
on to overhauling the maps.
Maps.
There aren't really any realism maps for Left 4 Dead on the workshop, and to be honest, it would probably be pretty hard for modders to make maps that look better than Valve did. So while I
Yeah.
couldn't just click one
I don't know,
button
some
and
of those
download
modded
some
maps are pretty
ultra-realistic maps,
badass. I love 'em.
could make changes to the ones that I already had. I downloaded this huge collection of mods that takes basically every asset and texture in the game and upscales it to 4K. I'm not sure how well this is going to translate to a YouTube video, but personally I think this made a night and day difference. Every texture was now super detailed, even when you got up really close to it, and I honestly think that this mod
Oh,
alone
wow.
took the game from looking like a 15-year-old game to a game that could have come out in the last 5 years. This mod even goes as far as to completely redo a few of the environment textures and replaced in-universe brands with real-world brands like Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Some
Yeah,
people
but
might not
that
like
could
that
get
because it's no
if you.
longer lore-friendly, but I personally find
Yeah,
small textures
exactly.
like that
It's
to be
well,
a
it's not
very welcome
streamer or
change, and
YouTube
also,
friendly.
Pepsi and Coca-Cola, they're yummy. Okay, they're just yummy. There were definitely
Yeah,
some
but you
weird
get in
looking
trouble for
assets in
that.
this pack, like these suspiciously clean HD cars, but I think small issues like that are well
Suspiciously
worth the
clean.
huge visual upgrade that the game gets. I played through my new 4K Left 4 Dead for a little bit, and while it was insanely fun and I genuinely felt like I was playing a zombie mod for Ready or Not or something, I did want to try out some community-made maps. After all, custom maps are extremely important to the Left 4 Dead
Oh,
experience.
the
and there's a good
Minecraft
chance that
map!
we could
Oh,
find
God, that
some
was fun.
cool, realistic ones. But as much as it pains me to say it, a lot of custom maps just don't work when you have this many mods installed. I
Yeah,
really wanted
that's
to play
true.
this one called Chernobyl because it's one of the most impressive custom maps I have ever seen, but
Oh, yeah.
attempting to
I
play
think
it with my
me and the
mod
guys
pack
did that
enabled
one.
just hard crashed the game every single time. I did get
Dude.
some custom maps working though, like this gun range. It wasn't anything special, but it was
Because it's
well
literally
made.
just
Also
one room,
a nice little
dude.
place to show off these screen space reflections that Reshade adds. I also got a port of CS Office from Counter-Strike, which I know doesn't seem like it would be a super impressive map, but the addition of screen space reflections and slow tactical movement made it a really fun CQB experience. I know it probably sounds like a huge bummer that most custom maps in the workshop just flat out won't work with this mod pack, but I am very happy to
A lot
report
of
that this
custom
Five
maps
Nights
don't
at
work
Freddy's
with a
map
lot
I
of mods.
downloaded Works perfectly
Oh,
fine.
the
So,
FNAF
you
one,
know.
I love it.
at least there's that.
Well, that's once again, it's because it's a small room, dude. It's not a big, expensive map.
Alright, so there was basically no aspect
Finishing
of the game that I hadn't modded
touches.
into oblivion, and honestly at this point, I'm not even sure if I could install any more mods without my entire game collapsing on itself.
Nah, go for it. You got
I did
this.
want to try a body camera mod for Reshade before I actually considered
The
making
body
it.
camera,
I
yes.
headed over to Nexus Mods and installed this body cam mod. This mod is technically only supposed to be used for Ready or Not, but I don't care about that, so I'm going to use it in Left 4 Dead. This looked pretty good and added another layer of realism to the game, but to be honest, no matter how many mods you install, Left 4 Dead's weapons will always be a little too stiff to believably look like they've been recorded on a body camera. It did pair pretty nicely with those ADS weapons I talked about earlier, though. I think you'd have to be a real freak to play through the game like this, and this definitely won't be my main Reshade setup, but it did work pretty well for LARPing as a cool SWAT guy. Also,
Nice.
I added slow-mo. Not because slow-mo is realistic, but because slow-mo is epic.
It kind of gives you an
And with
advantage,
that, my
dude.
friends, I was done. There may be a few things I could have done differently and a few mods I forgot to install, but for the most part, I think I can pretty confidently say that I made Left 4 Dead as realistic as possible.
Eh. Dude. Oh, well, I gotta admit, the slow-mo for some of this shit is badass. Oh, shit! It's like, yeah! Oh, damn, that ragdoll. Oh, shit. Behind you, Charger.
I'm pretty proud of my realism mod pack, and I think it looks good on just about any game mode. It's really bizarre just how different the game feels with it installed, considering most of the mods are purely visual and don't even really affect the gameplay in any way. If
They're
you're
not
looking to play
supposed
a
to.
slower, more methodical, and dare I say it, tactical Left 4 Dead, you should give this a try. There's definitely some issues with it, and in hindsight, maybe I could have added some more mechanics and also maybe toned down the saturation a little bit, but I set out making this video
Nah.
to combine Left 4 Dead and Ready or Not, and to be honest, I think I did that. It's kind of ridiculous. Just
I
how
don't play
model
Ready or
Left 4
Not,
Dead
so
2
I
is,
don't
and
know
that's
how
probably
accurate it is,
99%
but
of the reason people
damn, the
even still
game does
play
look
this
really
game.
good.
If anyone out there happens to own a game studio worth millions of dollars, I come to request that you make a Left 4 Dead Ready or Not game as soon as humanly possible.
You gotta get
That's pretty
permission
much
from
it.
Valve, dude.
As one final point of comparison, here's what the game looked like at the start of the video, and here's what it looks like now. I had a lot of fun
Nice.
messing around with one of my favorite games of all time, and I hope you enjoyed watching me do that. Big shout out to these people for being the creative geniuses that actually made the mods you saw in this video, and big shout out to these people for making cool-ass Left 4 Dead realism videos that, in some ways, inspired this one. Also, when I made my Gmod realism video, I forgot to take all the mods that I
Gmod.
installed and put it in a collection. So this time I did. This time you can go to the Steam Workshop and just hit download, and all the mods will be installed. So I got you covered this time. Sorry for not doing it last time. Thanks for watching. I've been Ratlobber.
He's like,
Peace.
There you go. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, that was actually pretty cool what he did with Resident Evil. Okay, you know what, guys? Let me know in the comments. You guys want me to try some of that shit with not Resident Evil, with I was thinking about the Resident Evil map. What he did with Left 4 Dead. You guys want me to try that in the? Let me know in the comments if you want me to try some of that with Left 4 Dead game with the guys. All right, we'll try it out on. Well, if we can do it, we'll try it out on the basic maps, and then maybe we'll try it out on some of the modded maps to see the community maps to see if they can run it. Anyway, also, guys, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, click on link to the original, like the original, subscribe to Rat Lobber. Okay, speaking of which, boom, subscription from me. And I will see you guys next time. Tune in every day for new content. Bye-bye.